By the time you hear this, the rulings by the Supreme Court will have a chance to have been digested by the pundits, the logical, rational people in this country, and the crazy fuckers that follow Donald Trump. And the decisions, or the conclusions, I should say, being offered up by each side of that horrendous divide will be diametrically opposed. As far as Trump is concerned, Jesus Christ himself came down and blessed him today and gave him everything he wanted. That was reflected by the useless Attorney General, the bitch from Florida, Pam Bondi, as she stood at the press briefing after the Supreme Court rulings were made public, with her little silver instrument of torture around her neck, while she more or less tell the American people to fuck off. On the other side are people who now realize, or at least they are concluding, that we should mark today, June 27th, 2025, as the day that democracy and the rule of law in this country died. If not died, was mortally wounded. How do you feel about that? By the way, that is the date today. This is Friday, the 27th of June, 2025, and I can't think of another time when I have been more concerned about where we go from here in this country. I'll try to get into some of this as the podcast progresses, but I'm sure by this point you've heard from people much brighter than I am where it concerns constitutional law and what this fascist Supreme Court ruled today in a number of rulings. Let me be clear from the start, though. They did not rule that birthright citizenship is to be removed from the Constitution. They didn't rule that. What they ruled was that various district court judges cannot stop Trump from trying to end birthright citizenship with an injunction. The judges can't. What am I trying to say? District, federal. Come on, Mike. Goddamn, I'm still in shock. I'm not recording this as you're hearing it. Obviously, this is earlier in the day, and I'm still trying to recover from all this shit. What the news media have revealed over the past couple of hours, ever since this fascist Supreme Court ruled in favor of dictatorship, in favor of destroying the idea of three co-equal branches of government. I think we can all agree with that. It doesn't exist anymore. Trump's goal and the slime behind him have been pushing for a very long time to the push towards the unitary president, where the president had supreme power, and he was first among so-called equals, but you can't be first among equals. I mean, that's a mathematical impossibility as well as a logical impossibility. But, you know, these fuckers don't care about math or logic or the Constitution. I will try to address some of this in my not very learned way. I hope you'll stick with me as we work our way through this podcast this evening. One thing I want to start with, though, is some of the bullshit that tumbled out of the Bondi bitch's mouth. She is a lying fucking Christian like all these people are. All these people who work for Trump. Every single one of them is a liar. 99% of them are Christians. There's a couple of Jews scattered in, maybe a couple of Hindus. I don't think maybe there might be a Muslim. Who knows? But for the most part, these liars, these people who are destroying self-governance in this country are Christians, and they're very proud of it. Thank you very much. But when Pam Bondi, the Christian bitch from the Justice Department, stood there with her Lord and Master to her right this morning, and to her left was Trump's criminal defense attorney, criminal defense attorney, who was so successful. I'm talking about Todd Blanche. So successful in defending Trump, Trump wound up with 34 felony convictions, and Todd Blanche got promoted to the Justice Department. So that's how this works. But there was a couple things that the Bondi bitch said that are just so irritating, and they just have to do with the last election. She keeps saying that the American people gave Trump a mandate by an overwhelming vote. Look, let's try to put this straight, okay? Trump won the popular vote by 1.5% of the votes cast. 75 million and change went to Harris. 77 million and change went to the toilet rat. Now, when you take that 77 million that the toilet rat got in terms of votes for his dictatorship, you have to keep in mind what that represents. If we consider 350 million people in this country, he got 77 million votes. He is ruling by mandate like a king with only 22% of the American people supporting what he did. Now, I understand. I say 22%. I don't know how many of those people were under the age of 18 out of the 350 million people in this country who did not have a legal right to vote, obviously. But still, to me, it represents a horrendous imbalance. If 22% of the general population of this country voted for this fucking dictator, that means 78% did not. And again, okay, a lot of people were underage. But here's the thing. This is the thing that just about still drives me crazy. Wakes me up in the middle of the night when I stare into the darkness. And, excuse me, that is the fact, and it is a fact. Though so many disparate groups in this country who are disparate because we can't seem to fucking get together on anything where it concerns letting this fascist run the country into the ground. But so many different groups, whether they were Latino men or black men or white women or black women, well, not black women, they voted overwhelmingly against this son of a bitch. But so many of these groups voted for Trump. What the fuck? I've asked this so many times. What the fuck were they thinking they were voting for? It's just astonishing. And the one voting block that I keep thinking of is the one in Dearborn, Michigan. I grew up in Toledo, Ohio, which is just a stone's throw from Dearborn, Michigan. I had a lot of friends in Detroit, Dearborn, all those suburban areas around Detroit. Because once you hit the expressways between Toledo and Detroit, Michigan, or Dearborn, it's like Toledo's a suburb. But I remember how many Muslim Americans, if that's the right term to use, how many Muslim Americans who are American citizens had a right to vote. Hundreds of thousands of them said, no, fuck it, we're not going to vote for Kamala Harris because she's part of the Biden-Harris administration that was funding the slaughter of Palestinian children in Gaza. Now, I completely understand that sentiment. You've heard no more of a vocal voice against what the Israelis have done to the Gazans than mine. Let's just get that stated right up front. But still, my position was when it became clear that so many Americans of the Muslim faith were going to decide not to vote for Trump to punish who? I'm sorry, not going to vote for Harris. To punish who? To punish Biden? Biden wasn't even in it. And Harris didn't set policy. The president sets policy. So by not voting for Harris in order to punish Biden, these ignorant fools stuck their own heads in the noose. And now Trump is tightening the noose. So to black Americans, Muslim Americans, white women, suburban Americans who decided to give Trump a second shot because you bought into his bullshit, even though he's a fucking criminal, a grifter, and a liar. You have helped bring this country down. So, I feel about as part of this country now as, in a least sense, as I've ever felt. This is not my country anymore. It really isn't. And I am no longer a participant in it. And I know that. By the time the next election comes around, the next presidential election, I'll be curious if I'm alive and still in this country. I'll be curious to see how I feel about even voting again. That's how rotten I feel. Now, if I'm not in this country, I will still be doing this podcast. I may become an expat like so many of my friends have become, but this is an internet show, so I can go any goddamn place where there's Wi-Fi and do this podcast. And as I've said many times, as long as you support the Malloy podcast, it'll be there. It's only when the support is no longer there, and I'm talking financial support. It's only when the financial support is no longer there that we will fold the tent and slip into the night. But I tend to agree with, let me see here, Sotomayor. I got one of her quotes as a result of what the Supreme Court decided. Yeah, she dissented, of course. The three logical judges on the Supreme Court, justices on the Supreme Court, realized what they were up against, the three of the four women, and voted no about this bullshit. But writing in dissent for the other two liberal members, or three, Justice Sotomayor said the majority had, her word, shamefully played along with the Trump administration's what she called gamesmanship in this particular case about birthright citizenship. She described it as an attempt to enforce what she called a patently unconstitutional policy by not asking the justices to bless the Trump policy and take away birthright citizenship, but instead, because they are such slick, sly fuckers, the Trump administration asked the justices to limit the power of federal judges around the country. When a judge would issue an injunction stopping Trump from ending birthright citizenship. And the argument, you heard a lot of this this morning, if you paid any attention to these fucking Nazis standing there, Trump and Blanche and the bitch from Florida, their whole argument was that Trump, because he's the president, had imperial power to do what he wanted to do. And some federal judge in one of the, 19 districts, I think there's 19 districts of federal court system, that not one of those judges had a right to issue a nationwide injunction. And the argument that the bitch Bondi made was that, for the first 250 years of this republic, such a thing never happened. I wonder if she understands, she probably figures her audience doesn't understand, that there was no need for it. In the first place, we didn't have that kind of court system during all those decade after decade after decade of subsequent to the establishment of the country, of the United States. But all of these Christian devils, they understand how stupidly ignorant the people to whom they're addressing really are. So they can say shit like that. But Sotomayor said this. She warned that under this ruling that was handed down today, quote, no right is safe in the new legal regime the court creates. She added this. Today, the threat is to birthright citizenship. Tomorrow, a different administration may try to seize firearms from law-abiding citizens to prevent people of certain faiths from gathering to worship. The majority holds that absent cumbersome class action litigation, the courts, the federal court system in this country, cannot completely enjoin even such plainly unlawful policies unless doing so is necessary to afford the formal parties complete relief. So, what is she saying? First of all, she's saying that what Trump is doing is fucking unlawful. It is contrary to the Constitution. The 14th Amendment states it very goddamn clearly. And as the toilet rat said this morning in that press briefing, the 14th Amendment was written for the babies of slaves. He repeated that 3 or 4 times. The babies of slaves. That meant that they had citizenship, not that people coming to this country and having a kid that would make that kid a legal citizen of the United States. Legal citizen of the United States, has citizenship. So their arguments, the toilet rat and his legal representation, their arguments were designed two things. To totally, as Sotomayor said, a total example of gamesmanship. By not asking the court to decide on the 14th Amendment, that's coming up, by the way, in October. That's what I think the court has said. They're issuing this preliminary order saying that federal judges do not have the right to issue an injunction that covers the entire country. Not one federal judge has the right to do that, which is just a temporary thing. Now, of course, the toilet rat grabbed that with his talons and his filthy little fucking mouth and declared himself the total victor. And he probably knows that come this October, he will be the total victor because a third of the Supreme Court was appointed by him. And another third of the Supreme Court are fascist motherfuckers who don't give a goddamn about the U.S. Constitution. They are religious nutfucks who want this constitutional republic to be absolutely dismantled. And they're doing a quicker job of it than I thought possible. But they're doing it. Anyway, Justice Sotomayor took the rare step of reading parts of her dissent from the bench. Now, I don't understand the protocols or the traditions of the Supreme Court, but there's certain things they do, certain things they don't do. And it's my understanding one of the things they don't do is share their dissent. If you want to know what the justices who dissent in a ruling have said and why they dissent, then you can get a copy of the ruling and read it. If you can work your way through that dense Supreme Court language, which I've always found to be goddamn near impossible. But anyway, this is what Sotomayor shared with the public. Quote, with the stroke of a pen, the president has made, quote, a solemn mockery, end quote, of our Constitution. Rather than stand firm, the court gives way. Because such complicity should know no place in our system of law, I dissent, end quote. So she and Ketanji Jackson who's the third liberal justice? I'm sorry, I'm drawing another blank, which is not surprising given how my mind has turned to mush today. But the three rational judges, all three women, have decided that, for obvious reasons, that the 14th Amendment says what it says. It couldn't be any fucking clearer. But then it was part of the 14th Amendment also, I think it was the 14th, that declared that somebody who had been involved in trying to overthrow the government of the United States or overthrow the country could not hold elective office. That's what the Supreme Court of Colorado said. They agreed with that. And then the U.S. Supreme Court, under the control of the toilet rat, ruled it in a sense saying, oh, that's okay. If somebody tries to overthrow the government, it doesn't make any difference. If they don't succeed, they can run for office. If they do succeed, I guess it doesn't matter. So, I've been trying to determine what my state of mind is ever since all this shit was made public this morning, about 11 o'clock this morning. Do I feel that this experiment in self-governance is ended? There's a part of me that says yes, absolutely. Because the damage that this fucking bum Trump is doing will not be corrected by the next rational president of the United States, which would not be a Christian fascist, who would be a Democrat, a progressive, someone who wants to really return us to the rule of law. The toilet rat stood there as the dumb fuck that he is this morning, trying to praise the Supreme Court for what they handed him. And he kept referring to the return of the Constitution. It's just obscenely insane what he's saying. It's ass backwards, it's upside down, it's inside out. The sovereignty of the Constitution was not returned with these rulings. The court's conservative majority left open today the possibility that the birthright citizenship changes could remain blocked nationwide, that is taking away from Trump the right to deny them citizenship. But what does the ruling mean for Trump? Well, the outcome was a victory. He has bitched and frothed at the mouth because he's a racist pig fucker about individual judges throwing up obstacles to his agenda. And Trump said this morning at that press briefing after the results of the rulings were made public, he said, quote, "It's a giant ruling and they should be very proud and our country should be very proud of the Supreme Court today." I dissent. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. You know, the Progressive Voices Network brings you commercial-free commentary from today's leading progressive radio hosts and pundits, like me, Mike Malloy, 24 hours a day. I'm not your typical old guy from the 80s or the 90s talk radio host, and Progressive Voices is not your typical talk radio network. It's a listener-supported nonprofit with no corporate control whatsoever over our broadcast. So hosts like me, Mike Malloy, are free to rant and scream and carry on about whatever we like. We're often controversial, but we're never boring. Weeknights, 9 p.m. in the East, 6 p.m. in the West on the Progressive Voices Network. Always progressive, always on. I'm Mike Malloy. Keep it lit.